In fact, the person Jasper loved was my sister. Marrying me was just his second choice. Because I had a face that was very similar to my sister's. Later my sister and I were in a car accident together. He chose to save my sister first. When I was on the verge of death, it was my nemesis Kenji who stayed with me. Once reborn, I firmly decided to break off the engagement. I went back to the alley in my memory. The familiar young man smiled and teased me. Miss you. What brings you here today? Do you want wontons again? No. I'm here to find you. Kenji. I was reborn on the second day after Jasper came to propose marriage. Honey. Your brother Jasper came to propose marriage yesterday. Since you happen to like him. If you agree, Mom and Dad will give him an answer. Mom and Dad were discussing my sister's marriage with Brother John and suddenly the topic shifted to me. What? I was still immersed in the grief of my death in the previous life and was stunned for a long time. Look. Our little girl is so happy that she's gone silly. My sister was also happy for me and held my arm. Jasper told me that as long as you're willing to marry him, he'll marry you right away. Your love for him has finally come to fruition. Honey. Are you happy? Really? I forced a smile. Jasper's feelings for my sister were deeply hidden, so deep that he didn't show them in front of her at all, and so deep that none of the people around us had noticed. Even I thought that he was nice to me. Took care of me and cared about me because he liked me. I never thought that I was just borrowing my sister's light. My sister and I looked 8/10 alike. He completely regarded me as a substitute for my sister. In the previous life, right after my sister's marriage was arranged, Jasper came to ask for my hand in marriage. I was so excited that I couldn't sleep and was happily waiting to get married. Until the wedding night. The drunk Jasper hugged me, looked at my face affectionately, and then called out my sister's name. Every word was sincere and earnest. He said that the person he loved was Janaya, not me. He said that since he couldn't be with Janaya, he would marry her sister and continue to be a family member to protect her. At that moment, I suddenly realized. Jasper didn't love me at all. He couldn't have the one he loved. So he married me because of my similar face to hers. I don't want to marry him. The previously lively atmosphere suddenly froze. And everyone turned their eyes to me. Mom held my hand, very puzzled. Honey. Why? With a determined look in my eyes, I glanced at the confused sister and then at the expectant parents and said, I have someone I like. His name is Kenji. I'll only marry him and will never marry Jasper. I let go of Mom's hand and ran out of the house. I came to an alley. It was exactly the same as in my memory. The one more bowl wonton shop at the corner was still there. The camphor tree in front of the door was still the same. I carefully peeked my head into the shop. Mom, I told you to prepare 2 kinds of seasonings. Not everyone likes coriander. You brat. Now that you've made some money, you've got guts. Huh? Lecturing me now. You're in your 20s and I haven't seen you bring a daughter-in-law home yet. Get out of my way. Mom. Your son is single and rich. There are plenty of girls who like me. You don't need to worry. Don't brag without thinking. That little girl who came to eat wontons in high school was so nice. But you were so capable that you drove her away. If it wasn't for me, I wouldn't bother with you. I'm going to stock up on goods. You watch the shop carefully. Got it. Doctor slowly on the road. Kenji's mom rode a tricycle to stock up on goods and Kenji's carefree voice echoed for a long time. When I was overwhelmed by fear and despair. When I was pinned down by the broken car body. It was this voice that woke me up from the brink of life and death. Ella. If you die, hyvin filftel rides die. I'll tell the whole world about the time you sneaked into the men's bathish to watch me take a bath. Lord Yama will think you're lustful and won't let you reincarnate. You're talking nonsense. That was an accident. Then I'll tell everyone about the time you secretly poured out my ink when we were at school and ruin your reputation. Kenji. How can you be so petty? I'm just a petty person. Ella. I'm telling you. Hold on. The ambulance will be here soon. The tone and intonation hadn't changed at all. I stood under the tree at the door listening intently, and didn't even know when he noticed me. Ella? It's really you. Kenji stood at the door looking at me leisurely. Miss you. Why do you have time to come to my little shop today? I'm hungry. Is that okay? Sure. Miss you. Please come in. He was as annoying as ever. Teasing me with the words miss you. Almost forgot. Kenji was still the same Kenji as before. He hadn't been reborn. Did you really come to eat wontons? There are much more delicious delicacies outside than mine. Are you changing your taste? Why are you so talkative? I want the most expensive shrimp and golden soup wontons. Hurry up and make them for me. Miss you can't wait. Still 3 bowls? 3 bowls was our shared secret. The first time I ate the wontons he made was in the 2nd year of high school. I had a fight with my family. Skipped class because I was in a bad mood. And then it rained heavily and I got soaked. It was Kenji who found me and took me in at his family's wonton shop. My stomach was growling. He laughed at me, while reluctantly making me a bowl of hot wontons. I ate 3 bowls in one go. He obviously wanted to expose my old secret. I snorted. 1 bowl. Alright. Miss you. Just wait. Kenji was good in every aspect, except that he had a sharp-tongued and annoying mouth. When I first fell in love, I studied in the same class as him and was his desk mate for 3 years. Because he could cook, was good at sports, and was good at handling interpersonal relationships. My feelings for him changed from admiration to love. And I even boldly wrote him a love letter. However, halfway through, it all fell apart. Just after I finished writing it, I heard his conversation with his buddies. Kenji, your desk mate Ella is not only good at studies but also good looking. You've been sitting at the same desk with her for so long. Don't you like her? Really don't like her? I heard from Ella's sisters that she has a thing for you. Why are you so gossipy? I don't like girls like Ella. She's too skinny. She'll be blown away by the wind. She's also crybaby and fussy. And hard to coax. I like bright and beautiful women with good figures. I rushed in and scolded him for being shallow, lustful, and having no taste. Then, in a fit of anger, I crumpled the love letter in front of him and threw it into the trash can. Who likes you? I don't like you at all. We fell out. To be precise, I unilaterally broke off with him. After that, he shone brightly in the sports meeting, achieved remarkable grades, and more girls in the school liked him, most of whom were the type he liked. I stopped paying attention to him, didn't talk to him, and our relationship became more and more strained. He gradually became my nemesis, and we would always have verbal battles whenever we met. Until I met Jasper. I was attracted by his mature temperament and slowly forgot about Kenji. From then on, my heart revolved around Jasper. While Kenji was studying and starting his business, he gradually faded out of my world. In the previous life, after Jasper proposed marriage, high school alumni held a reunion. Kenji had become mature and quiet, so much so that I almost didn't recognize him. Rarely, we sat down and talked calmly. I heard you're getting married? Yes. Is he good to you? Yes. Wish you happiness. Thank you. Later, I learned that he got drunk in the private room that night and cried all night. It was also then that I learned that he had been alone all these years and had a clean relationship history. I was deceived by him again. On my wedding day, I received a congratulatory gift from him. It was a national free food card. It could be used in all his food chain stores with no time limit, price limit, or number of people limit. A casual joke in high school. He not only remembered it, but also took it seriously. After marriage, I only met him at a few events. By then, his business had reached a new level. He became the well-known young President Kenji, and his career was thriving. At that time, I only had eyes for Jasper and didn't notice that every time he looked at me, there was always a touch of sadness in his eyes. Miss you. Are you so hungry that you're staring a hole through the table? Kenji waved his hand in front of me and brought up a bowl of hot wontons. The wontons were stuffed full. The delicious soup had seaweed floating in it. And there were strands of egg rolls. Don't worry. I only put some vinegar in it for you. There's no coriander or scallions. I was surprised. How did you know I don't eat those? During the 2 years I was married to Jasper, he had never paid attention to these details. I stared at him as if I wanted to tear off his disguised mask and expose his most sincere heart. Kenji, who was always sharp-tongued, Suddenly didn't know what to say and stammered. Well. After all, we were classmates for several years. Everyone knows your picky habits. It's not really a secret. But you still remember my taboos until now. Do you remember everyone so clearly? I stared at him firmly with a certainty I had never had before in my words. Kenji was calm at first. But after I stared at him for over a minute, he gradually became a bit guilty and subconsciously touched his nose. No, you're the only one around me who hates coriander so much. Naturally. I remember you clearly. Eat quickly. It won't taste good when it gets cold. He scratched the back of his head to avoid the topic. He didn't dare to look at me. I ate the wontons he made one by one. The taste was the same as in my memory. Kenji stared at the empty bowl, dumbfounded. Miss you. Not everyone can afford your appetite. You're not just anyone. Why am I not? At that time, I was busy eating and didn't pay attention to his answer. Nor did I notice the self-mockery in his words. The pain of the car fragments piercing my lungs made my consciousness drift away. The voice I heard wasn't Jasper's but that of my nemesis Kenji. Are you blind? Don't you see there's still a person under the car? You're lying. He's clearly not good to you at all. Only you're so stupid that you're devoted to him. I'm so regretful. Ella. I regret pushing you away. Now I'm worthy of you. But I'm about to lose you forever. Ella. Wake up. This isn't a funny joke. Get up and scold me again. I like it when you quarrel with me. Don't be so quiet. Okay? Ella. Hold on. I'll carry you to the hospital. Thinking of his words of confession and regret before I died, my nose felt sour and my tears fell into the soup. After I died, my soul lingered around him for a long time. On the day I was buried in the cemetery, Jasper stood in the family seat. He cried sadly, as if he had lost his dearest love. But I knew the truth. If Jasper had been a bit more attentive to me, it wouldn't have ended up like this. Jasper is like a mirror, through which, by looking at my face, it reflects how failed and ironic my marriage is. And Kenji, who witnessed my death with his own eyes, just stood silently in the distance because he didn't have the right identity. It wasn't until the ceremony was over and all my family members had left that he came to my grave with a bouquet of white hyacinths in his hands. Miss, I've come to see you. White hyacinths symbolize an unspoken love. I sat beside him and counted the little flowers one by one. There were exactly 520 of them. For some reason, when I heard him call me Miss again, I always felt like crying. Besides him, no one else would call me that. My eyes became a bit teary. And Kenji's warm tears dropped onto my palm. Don't be afraid. I won't tell others about your embarrassing moments. Those are secrets that only I know. How could I bear to let others know? You must be happy in the other world. Show your air as a young lady. Scold when you should scold. And be willful when you should be willful. Don't wrong yourself. Ella. I shouldn't have been so cowardly. I should have hugged you tightly and confessed my love to you when I knew you liked me. And let the whole world know that I liked you. Would our ending have been different then? There were dark circles under his eyes. His complexion was haggard, and his eyes were full of bloodshot. Really? You liked me too. I felt so heartbroken that I wanted to reach out and touch him. But my hand passed through his body. The sky seemed to be crying. And it started to rain heavily. I told him to go back quickly. But he didn't move at all. I forgot that we were separated by life and death. And he couldn't hear me. In the cemetery shrouded in sadness, only the white hyacinths swayed sadly in the rain. Kenji didn't dislike me. On the contrary, he loved me deeply. But he was self-abased. His family was of ordinary circumstances. His father died early, and he owed a lot of debts. His mother raised him by running a wonton shop alone. During his growth, he had been treated coldly by many people and basically cut off contact with his relatives. He could earn money by helping others fight to help support his family. And as a result, he was covered with injuries. He could also accompany his mother to sell wontons around the suburbs on a special tricycle as early as 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning to promote the wontons. Kenji once said that all he had were his mother and a wonton shop that wasn't very big. The inferiority of the teenager reached its peak at this moment. With such a huge difference in their backgrounds. His feelings stopped right there. So he put on an air of nonchalance in front of me to disguise his true self and successfully turned himself into someone I disliked. Do you have something on your mind? Kenji saw that I was in a bad mood. Jasper has proposed to my father. Kenji froze when he was about to hand me a tissue, and his hand hung in my drawer. He knew Jasper. Is that so? And you should be happy. To be honest, you two are quite a good match. I didn't expect you'd get married so soon. I won't go to join the fun then, so that you won't be annoyed when you see me. He rubbed his hands, looking very flustered, and was trying his best to hide the trembling of his lips. I saw all of this. My heart ached. Kenji. I don't want to marry him. Huh? In his puzzled eyes. I put down my chopsticks. Slowly. I said, Kenji. Would you like to marry me? When I got home, there was someone I didn't like sitting on the sofa. Jasper. As energetic as I remembered. With his peach blossom eyes that seemed affectionate when looking at anyone. The first time I saw him after being reborn, there were too many emotions in my heart. What are you doing here? What I wanted to say has already been conveyed to you by my parents. He seemed unable to hear the impatience in my words. Darling. Why did you suddenly change your mind? Did I do something wrong? If I did something wrong, I apologize to you. I just don't like you. There's no other reason. Let go. Darling. Do you not want to get married so soon? It doesn't matter. I can wait for you. Do you really want to marry me? I asked. Of course. I really want to build a family with you. There wasn't the slightest hesitation. Jasper. Are you really talking to me with such a firm tone? Or are you looking at my sister, who is destined to be out of your reach? Through my face? I smiled sarcastically. Jasper. The person you really like isn't married yet. If you're not reconciled, just confess your love to her directly. As soon as I mentioned my sister, Jasper's face clearly changed. The long-hidden secret was exposed, and he subconsciously looked at Janaya. My sister didn't know what was on his mind. She just thought he was signaling her to help persuade me. Darling. You and Jasper should talk things over. Don't spoil the relationship. Sister. When are you and your fiancé going to try on wedding dresses? My sister was distracted by my topic. Tomorrow. Your brother-in-law has already arranged it. He'll accompany me all day tomorrow. When mentioning the person she liked, my sister's eyes lit up. As she spoke, she took out her mobile phone and sent a message to her fiancé. I deliberately provoked Jasper. Sure enough, as soon as I mentioned her fiancé, a trace of sadness flashed in Jasper's eyes. His complexion was terribly bad. The affectionate look he had shown me before was shattered in an instant. After knowing everything, every little detail became particularly obvious. Jasper and my sister had been friends for many years, and also had some intersections in work. I was 3 years younger than them and got to know him later. I used to follow behind him and call him Brother Jasper. Although I got to know him late, Jasper was more considerate and attentive to me than to my sister. I was deceived by the preference he pretended to have. In fact, every time he looked at me, he was actually looking at my sister who he couldn't touch. My gaze was so intense that Jasper finally came to his senses. Darling. You. Jasper seemed not to believe it, and hesitated to speak. What do you mean? Up to this point, he was still pretending with me. I sneered. You know very well what I mean. You don't like me at all. You've been acting all along. Amela. Not anyone's substitute. Nor your second choice when you can't have the one you love. Jasper. You're not only a scumbag but also a coward. Don't call me darling anymore. You don't deserve it. I drove Jasper away. Before he left, he vowed, there are some misunderstandings between us. We need some time to sort them out. I'll come to see you in a few days. Go and cool yourself off somewhere else. I closed the door myself. Darling. My parents, who had been hiding in the room and eavesdropping without showing up, opened the door at this time. I poured a glass of water for each of them. They looked at each other and smiled awkwardly at me. Darling. What's going on now? We don't quite understand. Mom and Dad. Jasper doesn't really want to marry me. He has someone he likes and just regards me as a substitute for that person. It's impossible for me to be with him in this life. You know my personality. Don't persuade me anymore. I closed the bedroom door and heard their discussion downstairs. From what your sister said, Jasper has someone else in his heart, not your sister. I'll go and ask about it later. If what Darling said is true, I won't allow Jasper to get close to her. Darling has always been a girl with her own ideas. I believe she wouldn't make this decision for no reason. By the way, Mom and Dad, I'll go and inquire about Kenji first. Suddenly, there's a boy she likes. I'm afraid Darling will be deceived. Zinar, remember that other things don't matter. You must find out clearly about the boy's character and past experiences. Their voices grew fainter and fainter. I lay on the bed, recalling the look on Kenji's face when he was so shocked that he just stood there dumbfounded. Agree or not? You've been considering it for so long. It's time to give me an answer. Kenji smiled casually. You didn't drink today. Why are you talking nonsense as if you were drunk? Miss, Hediftiu. This joke isn't funny. Try another one. His expression darkened. He bent down to clean up the dishes and chopsticks and then turned around and went into the kitchen to wash them. I chased after him in my thin-heeled sandals. I'm not joking. Kenji, would you like to marry me? If you do, I'll marry you. The dishes and chopsticks in his hands all slipped to the ground with a clatter. Kenji stammered for a long time but couldn't say anything. I'm impatient by nature. So I directly hooked my arm around his neck and kissed him on the lips. I'll take it that you've agreed. It was almost evening. I touched my lips, as if the soft touch of his was still there. Faintly hot. That impulsive kiss made me feel a long-lost heartbeat. Because Kenji's mother came back early. I didn't get Kenji's answer. I poked his black and white avatar. I wondered what that blockhead was doing now. Kenji, are you asleep? Picture of a kitten peeking. JPG. Miss. Please be serious. Such a quick reply. I just happened to have my phone in my hand. Such a TS under E. You were just waiting for my message. I'm just being overly confident. Have you made up your mind? The answer. The other party is typing sign stayed on for a long time. Ella, I got a work call. Let's talk later. I couldn't tell if he was just avoiding me. Oh, then you go ahead with your work. As a result, he didn't reply to my message for 2 days. What kind of phone call lasts for 2 days? He was clearly avoiding me. I put on my little leather shoes and came to the wonton shop again. Kenji's mother was wiping the tables. I said in a sweet and soft voice. Auntie, I'm here to see Kenji. Is he here? Aren't you Ella? Kenji's high school classmate who could eat 3 bowls of wontons at a time? I haven't seen you for a long time. Have you and Kenji made up? How embarrassing. I didn't expect Auntie to have such a deep impression of me because of this. Yeah, Auntie. Long time no see. You look much younger than before. What a sweet talking girl. Auntie is old now. By the way, did you come to seek Kenji for something important? I walked shyly to Auntie. Auntie, I'd like to ask if Kenji has ever mentioned me to you over the years? Of course. Kenji often talked to me about the things when you were deskmates in high school. I should thank you. Actually, after getting to know you, Kenji's originally impatient and fierce temper has changed a lot. He's much milder in speaking and doing things now. Was it because of me? At first, Kenji had a wild and unruly temperament. He fought outside school, couldn't get along with classmates, and his eyes were extremely world-weary. Everyone seemed like trash in his eyes. When I first became his desk mate, to be honest, I was quite afraid of him. He not only talked very little, but also had a scar on his eyebrow bone. Once by accident, I saw his gentle and warm-hearted side under his wild and unruly appearance. Everyone went to have a physical education class, but I asked for leave because of the severe pain during my period. I lay on the desk like a dead fish, cursing everything in my heart and wishing I could bump into the whole world. It was Kenji who poured the hot water I needed most for me and bought a warm baby. Here. Hold this to warm yourself up. He warmed it up with his hands before giving it to me. Didn't you go to the physical education class? I don't think I told you that I needed these. You. I could tell just by looking at you. I accepted his kindness. Thank you. He nodded and then came back again. Well. He seemed a bit embarrassed. Dragon fruit is a cool-natured fruit. Don't be greedy and eat it next time. Wasn't he sleeping when I ate the dragon fruit secretly? Remember that? His tone was natural yet authoritative. I was like a child caught by parents for doing something wrong. Obedient and timid. I remember. Okay. Kenji hooked his lower lip with satisfaction and slowly walked to the PE class with his bag slung over his shoulder. For some inexplicable reason, my eyes followed him all the way. Until I saw Kenji running on the track alone. The class bell had rung long ago. He was being punished to run because he was late. In the last class in the evening. Against the setting sun. The figure of Kenji running on the playground was deeply engraved in my mind. The hot water bottle in my hand continuously emitted heat. I knew that this was the beginning of the thaw in our relationship. Kenji is in the kitchen. I'll go and call him right away. No need. Auntie. I'll go find him by myself. I skipped to the kitchen, and I didn't even realize why my steps were so light. Kenji was washing dishes. In fact, his career had already been on the right track, but he had never forgotten where his roots were. Whenever he was free, having fulfilled one sigh, he would accompany his aunt to run this not-so-big wanton shop. He did everything by himself, from rolling out the dough, making the fillings, to wiping the tables and washing the dishes. Precisely because of this, and one more bull wanton shop had always had good business and was one of the few shops in the alley that had persisted for decades. He was extremely focused when doing things. His smooth series of washing actions were just like a silky water playing performance. I stared at the whole process without blinking and even forgot my purpose. Kenji. You're so handsome. I'm mesmerized. Unlike his reserved personality, I was straightforward and said whatever was on my mind. He was obviously stunned, as if he hadn't expected me to appear. He quickly took off his cleaning gloves and untied his apron. It's dirty here. You go out first. I was pushed out. There was a tank of lotus in the backyard. No wonder I smelled a faint fragrance of lotus when I came in. Are you hungry again? After thinking for a while, he came to this conclusion. I'm not hungry. Then what are you here for? I'm here to see you. You've seen me. You can leave now. He changed his face so quickly that I was caught off guard. Have you thought about what I said last time? I moved closer and stared at his eyebrows and eyes. He instinctively stepped back to keep a distance from me. He didn't answer for a long time. I guessed that he hadn't taken it to heart at all. I really want to marry you. I'm not joking. I was straightforward and didn't beat around the bush like Kenji. Ella. I know you were impulsive that day. He was referring to the time when I kissed him. It wasn't a joke. Besides, you responded at that time. It was just a reflex of my mouth. It doesn't count. Not only was he making excuses, but he also didn't dare to look at me. I was so angry that I laughed. What about when you held my waist? You didn't stand firmly. It was an illusion. He was still making excuses. Kenji, don't you really have feelings for me in your heart? Miss you. If you don't have anything else to do, I'll get back to work first. He avoided answering. He started to irritate me again by calling me, miss you. Sure enough. He knew me well. I was already a bit unhappy. All right. I got it. I won't force you. I pretended to be angry. Since you don't want to, I won't force you. I'll go back and marry Jasper immediately. It's what I deserve if I'm unhappy and miserable for the rest of my life. Without waiting for Kenji's answer, I left the shop. Even now that he had achieved something, he still thought it was impossible for us to be together. He lacked courage. If I didn't take the initiative, given his personality, he would never take that step. I hid behind the camphor tree and counted the time. Instead of Kenji, I saw Jasper getting out of a Land Rover. He usually wouldn't come to this kind of alley at all. Are you following me? I sneered. Jenna had told me that the person you like is here. I came to see what kind of person made you reject my proposal. Obviously. You liked me before. Why did you suddenly change your mind? Losing his gentle demeanor, he revealed his paranoid and terrifying true face. I really didn't know what was going on in his mind. He loved my sister, but he insisted on marrying me. It was disgusting and despicable. There's no one else here. Don't play dumb with me. Jasper. Ask yourself. Why do you insist on marrying me? Isn't it because I look very similar to someone? Honey. What are you talking about? I don't understand. A trace of fear flashed across his face. He was feeling guilty. Jasper. If you push me any further, I'll expose everything and no one will be better off. There's a misunderstanding between us. Come on. Let's have a good talk. Jasper somehow learned the skill of pestering people and forcibly dragged me into the car. Why didn't I notice how crazy this guy was in my previous life? Jasper. Let me go. I'll tell my sister. Let me go. Ella. Jasper. Let Ella go. Kenji chased after us. He still cared. I took the opportunity to beat Jasper hard and ran towards Kenji. Kenji. He bullied me. I hid behind him, a grieved lie, tugging at the corner of his clothes, looking pitiful and on the verge of crying. Kenji's attitude obviously softened. He gently patted my shoulder and comforted me. Don't be afraid. Then he used his tall body to shield me completely. Ella. What made you change so much overnight? You used to call me brother Jasper. Is it because of him? I don't need a reason to dislike you. Anyway, Hanningful Sildwade Shashin. I won't marry you. Kenji knows me better than you and likes me more than you. He's the one I'm going to marry. Ella. If you're with this poor guy, are you planning to sell wontons with him for the rest of your life? Do you think your parents will agree to you to being together? Is he really worthy of you? Jasper's words were full of contempt and he ridiculed Kenji. Kenji's face was calm, but his jaw was tense. He was restraining his emotions. I put my hand on his and tiptoed to kiss him. Right in front of Jasper. This time, Kenji didn't just stiffly accept it, but took the initiative to respond. Our eyes met. I just want to be with him. My heart is firm and will never change. Jasper left in a huff. I turned my head to meet Kenji's bright eyes and felt my heart skip a beat. I pursed my lips. Kenji. That wasn't enough. I want to kiss you again. Another attempt failed as Kenji pushed me back firmly. Mean. We went back to the backyard. Kenji became the same Kenji who didn't want to pay much attention to me at the beginning. I knew that he cared about what Jasper had said. I anticipated his move and stopped him when he tried to escape. Don't tell me it was just your mouth reacting reflexively again. After a long while, he asked. You clearly liked Jasper very much before. Why did you suddenly act like this towards me? If you're just trying to annoy him, there's really no need to use me as a shield. I'm not convincing at all. You like me. I know that. And I can understand the choices you made before. But I want to tell you that Ella, never care about a man's background. All I care about is the person. My parents are very open-minded. They will respect my choice. You're so nice. And they will like you too. He had nowhere to retreat and was pushed to the corner by me. Moreover, Kenji, you're not bad at all. At least in my eyes. You're better than anyone else. Hearing this, a glint of light flashed in Kenji's eyes. But it quickly disappeared. He still didn't believe it. Well, my attitude had changed so obviously that anyone would be suspicious. If you don't believe me, I can prove it. For example, marry me and be my legal husband. He turned his face away. I reflected for 3 seconds. Was my request a bit too overbearing? Kenji's voice was as soft as a mosquito's buzzing. I'll think about it. All right. I'll wait for you at the Civil Affairs Bureau in the afternoon. I can't make it in the afternoon. Give me 3 more days. Well, I was a bit too impatient. It seemed that I wasn't being reserved. 3 days it is. Then remember to say some nice words for me in front of Mom. I can't eat 3 bowls now. I have a small appetite and am easy to support. We're not. Yet. I pretended not to hear. Goodbye. Brother Kenji. Seeing the shyness on Kenji's face as I expected, I happily swung my bag and left the wonton shop. You look so cheerful. Did something good happen? As soon as I entered the house, my sister noticed that something was different about me. Sister, if nothing unexpected happens, I should get my marriage certificate before you. Janaya almost spat water on my face. Cough. Cough. Are you serious? Are you really going to have a flash marriage with that Kenji? How long have you two been dating? Sister. When have I ever joked with you? When you meet the right person. You can't wait to get married to him right away. Only I know how good Kenji is. Based on my understanding of them. When I expressed my feelings last time. They must have privately investigated Kenji's character and background. Our family had an agreement before that we wouldn't interfere too much in our children's emotional lives. On the third morning. I got up before dawn. I held my phone and waited for the message. To be honest. I was also quite nervous. What if he still didn't want to? In this life. I really didn't want to miss Kenji again. I'll wait for you at the west gate of the alley. When I received the message. I immediately jumped out of bed and started a voice call. I'll be there right away. Don't run around. Got it? Wait for me. The voice on the other end said sweetly. I won't leave. I'll wait for you. Don't rush. I quickly put on some light makeup and ran downstairs with a beaming face. Honey. Where are you rushing off to? Dad. Mom. I'm going to get my marriage certificate. You guys have lunch first. What do you mean by, eat certificate? I mean get the marriage certificate. Your daughter is going to get married. I was always so impetuous. Besides. I had already told my sister in advance. With her at home. There was nothing to worry about. Kenji dressed up specially today. Instead of his usual parted hair. He showed his smooth forehead and styled his hair. Coincidentally. We were both wearing black and white couple outfits at the same time. Standing together. We looked perfect. Like a match made in heaven. Kenji held his household register and hesitated. Ella. Do you want to think about it again? Marriage is a big deal and can't be rushed. There are plenty of men around you who are better than me. I still hope. Don't you like me? I moved closer. From the beginning to the end. This was the only sentence I had. Because I knew that this was the most effective way to persuade him. At this critical moment. He was still hesitating. I was so frustrated with him. Kenji. As long as you say you don't like me. I'll cancel the appointment immediately. As long as you say you hate me. I definitely won't force you. 10 seconds later. He put the household register into his pocket. As if he had made a major decision. He sighed deeply. Let's go quickly. There will be a queue if there are too many people. I immediately jumped up and ruffled his hair. Looking at him affectionately. Okay, cutting my inside. Honey. Instantly. His ears turned slightly red. Well, don't call me that now. Wait until later. Got it. Honey. Afraid that I would notice. Kenji covered his burning ears in a furtive manner. Why hadn't I noticed before that the cool guy Kenji on campus had such a cute and innocent side in private? It was like discovering a new continent. There weren't many people in the Civil Affairs Bureau. And we quickly completed the formalities. The heart that had been hanging in suspense finally settled down steadily. This time. I don't want to miss him again. Nor do I want him to live alone with regret and longing. I want to be in love with him. Be affectionate as husband and wife. And grow old together. Kenji stared blankly at the marriage certificate. Looked at it again. And admired it over and over. With an uncontrollable smile on the corner of his mouth. Seeing his silly look. I couldn't help laughing too. To prevent you from having other ideas. I'll keep the certificate. Let's go and help you move first. On the day I went to find him. I had even picked out our wedding house. Isn't it a bit too soon? Kenji. What's the matter with you? Are you going to live separately from me on the first day we got the certificate? No, I didn't mean that. Sure enough. Love makes one stutter. I laughed heartily and tickled his chin to tease him. I knew you couldn't bear to part with me. No, it's just being reserved. Kenji, who had always had the upper hand in front of me, also got red in the neck when he was flustered. After getting the certificate, I posted a picture of the marriage certificate on my WeChat Moments, and also sent it separately in the family group. Dad, Mom, Sister, I know you've all secretly inquired about him. Since you didn't talk to me privately about it. It means you have no objections to him. I liked him back in high school. After so long. He has become more and more important in my heart. I'm only willing to marry him. He's really nice. And I don't want to miss him again. Dad, you're grown up now. With your own thoughts and judgment. As parents, we respect and support you. Mom, marriage is your own business. And you have to walk your own path. No matter what decision you make, Mom will support you as long as my baby is happy. Sister, darling. The wedding gift I bought for you is on the way. Thank you all. I'm really touched. Well, Dad, Mom, Sister, my husband is shy. I'll give him a heads up first and then add him to the group later. I'll bring him home to have a meal with you another day. Love you all. In the end, Kenji didn't move his luggage. Instead, I moved into the new house he had bought by the river. It had all kinds of furniture, was clean and tidy, and brand new without any dust. And most important thing was that the character for happiness was pasted on the door. Something was off. Really off. When did you buy this house? He obediently admitted. 2 days ago. I immediately understood. I secretly felt happy. Ella, now you really can't go back on your word. Whoever goes back on their word is a pig. A Ukrainian suckling pig. We both smiled at each other. Walking to the floor-to-ceiling window. The river view was vast and beautiful. And Kenji was standing beside me. I felt very content. At the end of the month, there was some trouble caused by customers at the restaurant under Kenji's name. And it seemed quite serious. As the owner of the restaurant, he had to fly to the neighboring city to solve the problem in person and also negotiate a cooperation deal while he was there. There were still some household items that needed to be bought at home. So I drove to the big shopping mall by myself. When I was browsing in the men's clothing section, I took a fancy to a tie. Just as I was about to pick it up to have a look, someone else got it before me. It was Jasper again. Darling. What a coincidence. You have good taste. He cheerfully asked the shopping guide to buy that tie. I should have checked the almanac before going out. What bad luck. Why isn't Kenji with you? I didn't want to talk to him at all. So I turned around and left immediately. Jasper chased after me. Like a persistent ghost. If I hadn't seen what he was like in my previous life, I would really have thought that he couldn't let me go. Are you that idle? Why do you always keep prying into the affairs between Kenji and me? Do you really think Kenji is sincere to you? Don't you know that an old acquaintance of his has returned to the country, and they are busy rekindling their relationship? Jasper handed me a photo. A photo showed Kenji and a woman coming out of a hotel and getting into the same car together. Both of them had smiles on their faces. And the angle made it look rather ambiguous. I recognized at a glance that it was Vivian. A die-hard admirer of Kenji's. Darling. A man and a woman alone like this. Do I need to spell it out? You and he are not from the same world at all. Let alone that he would be sincere to you. Someday, you'll understand that only I am the right one for you. Jasper. The Great Wall must be built with your thick skin. You're still talking about being sincere even now. I took the photo from his hand and tore it in half directly. Jasper. Just the fact that you secretly took pictures of others and still act so righteously makes you inferior to Kenji already. Don't bother yourself with the affairs between Kenji and me from now on. I got back into my car, and the scene in the photo kept flashing in my mind. The WeChat conversation was still stuck on good morning. What are you doing? I regretted sending it as soon as I sent it. Kenji is not that kind of person at all. He's not the kind of person who would do something to betray me. I'm negotiating a cooperation deal and have a social engagement in the evening. But, in my previous life, Vivian had been chasing after Kenji since high school, and she had never hidden her feelings for him. It's just that at that time, Kenji and I had fallen out, and I forced myself not to care. Kenji and she grew up in the same alley, so they had known each other very early. Later, they went to the same university and spent more time together. And I had withdrawn from Kenji's world early, so I wasn't sure whether they still had contact with each other. In this life, I took the initiative to break into his life and made our marriage happen. However, through the time we spent together recently, I clearly felt that he was a bit distant from me. Could part of the reason be that Vivian had come back? And they happened to meet in the neighboring city and rekindled their old feelings? After all, a hotel is a place that makes people think a lot. I couldn't fall asleep and was prone to overthinking. So I decided to go directly to Kenji to ask him clearly. At 8 o'clock in the evening, I arrived in the neighboring city. As soon as I got out of the taxi, I saw the person I was looking for. A man and a woman. One was trying to hide behind, and the other was pushing forward. You're drunk. I'll ask your colleague to take you back. Brother Kenji. Don't you really know that I've been waiting for you all these years? Why won't you give me a chance? You're single. And I'm single too. We're such a good match. Why won't you even look at me? Vivian was lying on Kenji, saying all kinds of ambiguous things. I couldn't tell if she was drunk or not. I felt my blood boiling with anger. What are you two doing? Pulling and tugging like this? I rushed over angrily and pulled them apart. Vivian's makeup was smeared, and she reeked of alcohol. She stared at me for a long time before reacting. I know you. You're brother Kenji's classmate. What a coincidence. Classmate. Classmate. Single. Alright. So Kenji hadn't even told her that he was married. My face turned as black as coal. I'm not his classmate. I'm his WI. Before I could finish my sentence, Vivian suddenly vomited in front of me. I was stunned. I can't stand it when people vomit in front of me the most. Immediately I felt nauseous and started vomiting too. Ella, are you okay? Kenji left Vivian and ran over to support me. I pushed him away angrily while still vomiting. I thought I was going to catch him in the act of cheating, but in the end I turned it into a farce. After settling Vivian in the hotel, Kenji opened a new room for me. He threw the dirty clothes into the laundry basket and then poured me a glass of warm water. Ella, did you come specifically to find me? Humph. If I didn't come to find you, how would I know that you were being confessed to? Someone sent me a photo of you and Vivian coming in and out of the hotel. I didn't want to make a big deal out of it, so I came to ask you clearly. I gave him a look and he got the message and immediately started to explain. I have nothing to do with Vivian. She's the representative sent by the partner this time and isn't familiar with the neighboring city. Since we're old acquaintances and have a cooperation going on, I just gave her a ride to the hotel entrance that day. I took a sip of the warm water and asked, do you like her? No, I rejected her back in college. I didn't know beforehand that the representative sent by the other party was her. If I had known, I would have tried my best to avoid her. Ella. You believe me? Yes, what? I believe you. I really meant it. After seeing Kenji's attitude towards Vivian with my own eyes, I was sure. There was no emotion beyond the proper boundaries in his eyes when he looked at Vivian. Thank you for believing me. He let out a sigh of relief. Kenji. Vivian said you're single. Why didn't I know that you're single? I asked him in return. Without any emotion in my tone. Kenji. Are you ashamed of me, or do you think it's unnecessary to tell others? No, he interrupted hurriedly. I was thinking that in case we didn't make it in the end, it wouldn't have too much impact on your reputation. As he spoke, his voice gradually trailed off. I stared at him steadily, feeling a bit let down and disappointed. He showed a look of fear, wanted to speak, but was reluctant to say anything. Kenji. On the day we got the certificate, I couldn't wait to tell everyone. I told you that I really wanted to build a family with you. What about you? You didn't have any hope for our marriage in your heart at all. Since that's the case, why did you agree to me back then? No. Ella. Let me explain. No matter how full of guilt his tone was, I drove him out and didn't reply to any of the messages he sent me. Don't come to see me until you've thought it through. I stayed in the neighboring city for a few days. Every day, Kenji would leave a bouquet of white hyacinths out my door and wait there to apologize to me. Seeing those bunches of flowers, I thought of the scene in front of my grave. It was sad and beautiful. He didn't stay, but the flowers did. I put each bouquet in a vase. Actually, I had already gotten over my anger. But Kenji hadn't grasped the key issue of our quarrel all along. Kenji had always been considerate in arranging my favorite food for me. When I was having spaghetti, Vivian found her way to the hall. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. Why do you still reject me? What's wrong with me? She was asking Kenji. But her eyes were scanning me. Kenji took the initiative to pull me into his arms and introduced. Vivian. I'm already married. Ella is my wife. And she's the best in my eyes. I looked up and accidentally met his gaze. His eyes were cautious. And I felt a bit uncomfortable when I saw that. Maybe I had pushed him too hard. How could I completely change his mindset overnight? Didn't you say in high school that you didn't like girls like her? Why did you suddenly marry her? I was also curious about how Kenji would answer. This time, he didn't avoid the question. I was lying back then. I've always liked Tella. And it has never changed. You know, my situation was not good back then. I felt inferior. Self-abased. And sensitive. So I was a coward. You asked me why I didn't accept you or others over the years. It's because Ella is the only one in my heart. Kenji looked at me. Speaking earnestly. Ella. I'll avoid all thoughts that are not good for our marriage in the future. I should have confidence in myself and in our marriage. Please don't be angry with me anymore. Okay? I thought it would take a long time to hear these words from him. Seeing that he was on the verge of crying, I reached out and patted his head. Okay. Let's work on it together. I showed a happy smile. And he took the initiative to hold my hand. In the evening, Kenji moved his luggage to my suite. He muttered with a firm tone. A newly married couple shouldn't lie separately. Then he washed himself clean and lay on the bed waiting for me. I still remember the first night after we got our marriage certificate. Someone insisted on sleeping in a way that clearly separated our sides. Just like the Chu River and Han border. The pajamas were very thin. And he was so close that his body was as hot as a stove. I could even hear his thumping heartbeat. My breathing became a little rapid. Ella. I still want to ask. Why me? His voice was hoarse. Why did I choose him among so many available men? The self-doubt in his tone overflowed again. Thoughts that had been held for years couldn't be changed overnight. I cupped his cheeks and said seriously. Because you're worth it. In the later part of my previous life, Kenji was so sad that he got white hair. As if he had aged 10 years overnight. He remained unmarried all his life. Guarding the few memories of me. My cemetery was the place he visited most often. My soul had been following him until the last moment of his life. When he was old and frail, he read the love letter that I had thrown into the trash can over and over again. Even though the handwriting had faded and the paper had turned yellow long ago, he still carefully folded it and put it in the pocket on his chest. Then closed his eyes contentedly. Thinking of this, I couldn't help crying. Kenji's expressions softened. And he reached out to wipe away my tears. Am I really worth it? You're worthier than anyone else. The hand around my waist hugged me even tighter. Ella, it all seems like a dream. I'm afraid that once I'm happy, the dream will end. I'm happy to marry you. The night you came to me, I couldn't sleep all night. My mind was full of your face. Ella, I'll work harder to strive for better living conditions for you than now. I won't let you down. His promise was sincere and simple. Yet it was also heart-touching. It's not a dream. Touch me if you don't believe it. He rubbed against my cheek. His slightly rough palm brushed past the corner of my clothes and gradually moved up, landing on my skin. I shivered from time to time. I wanted to say something, but I didn't have the strength to open my mouth. Under the moon's peeping, we quietly did something naughty. After we talked it out, Kenji and I gradually started to act like a real couple. Both of us were entering marriage for the first time and were learning how to manage it with efforts. I was glad that I had gone to the neighboring city and removed the potential hid and dangers early. The splashing sound of water in the bathroom stopped. Little fish. Could you pass me the towel? It was a subconscious address. I was stunned for a moment. Handing him the towel, I tentatively asked, what did you just call me? Little fish. He carefully observed my expression. If you don't like it, I won't call you that next time. A string in my mind suddenly snapped. I rushed forward and hugged him, who was still wet. Almost certain. When I failed the college entrance examination and locked myself at home. It was you who wrote that encouraging letter for me. Right? It's always been you. Hasn't it? Seeing that he couldn't hide it anymore, Kenji admitted it. After the college entrance examination results came out, I heard from classmates that you didn't do well. You didn't say a word for several days. I was so worried. I knew your personality best. You tend to be stubborn and always blame yourself. You definitely couldn't forgive yourself for failing to live up to your family's expectations. So I wrote that letter and secretly put it in your mailbox at home. That encouraging letter that untied the knot in my heart, gave me the courage to repeat a year of study, and completely made me give my heart to Jasper was written by Kenji. It turned out that I had been wrong from the very beginning. By chance, I entered Jasper's study and saw an unopened love letter on the bookshelf. The word little fish was written on the cover. And the handwriting was so similar. Plus, everyone said at that time that he treated me differently. So I didn't think much about it and directly regarded Jasper as the person who secretly wrote the letter to me. I plunged into it headlong without careful investigation and was lost in it. In fact, that letter was for my sister Janaya. Janaya was his little fish. It had nothing to do with me, Ella. That's why I was so sad and desperate later. My sister's marriage was happy and harmonious. I had never told her about these things. I hid it very well. Even Jasper didn't notice that I had already known his secret. I didn't dare to question him. I was afraid that the exposure of the truth would bring trouble to my sister's marriage and ruin the sisterly bond between her and me since childhood. I could only hate Jasper and myself, swallowing all the grievances and bitterness. Now I realized that I was wrong. I tightly hugged Kenji's waist, leaving no gap between our two bodies. My sobs turned into loud crying under his comfort. Kenji, I don't like that nickname. Could you call me honey instead? I want you to call me that. Alright. Honey. My tears were like a flood breaking through a dam. And the flow couldn't be controlled. You should have told me. You're always like this. Never speaking out your true feelings. Why was I so stupid? I didn't even notice something so obvious. Woo woo woo. Dear honey. Don't cry anymore. Okay? Your eyes will be swollen if you keep crying and it will be uncomfortable. Kenji. I want to sleep with you. That night, I pestered Kenji until midnight. He didn't know why but could only try his best to comfort me. The more he indulged me like that, the sadder I felt. I sobbed. Don't hide anything from me again. Okay? Alright. I promise you. Honey. His gentle voice coaxing me was sweeter than the delicious spring water in the mountains and went straight to my heart. Honey. No one had ever called it more beautifully than he did, and no one made me so fascinated as he did. On the bed, Kenji was my only warm harbor. I clung to him tightly like an octopus. Don't give me white hyacinths next time. They symbolize silent love. Love is too bitter if it's not spoken out. I don't like it. It should be said aloud and bravely let the other person know. It's wrong not to say it. Do you remember? Yes. I remember. That's not enough. He looked at me blankly. And then as if inspired, he gently pecked at my collarbone. I promise next time. That's more like it. I huddled in his arms, wrapped in warmth, and gradually felt sleepy. But I clearly heard Kenji's murmuring voice. In the quiet night, the warmth of his palm rubbed against my skin. I was thinking at that time that you already had someone you loved. If I showed up in front of you and explained that little letter, wouldn't it add to your troubles? Just like the Little Mermaid. The prince had already fallen in love with the princess of the neighboring country. Even if the Little Mermaid told him that it was she who saved the prince might not necessarily fall in love with her. After thinking about it, I thought it was better not to show up in front of you. Good night, my honey. A gentle kiss landed on my forehead, like a feather brushing by.